Hello and welcome to another Out of Spec Reviews video. Welcome to the inside of my Rivian. It's been a little while since we've made a Rivian video, and I've just been testing a bunch of other cars, but I've actually heard from some of my friends who are Rivian owners that secretly Rivian has massaged the charging profile of the vehicle. They recently issued a software update, maybe a couple months ago from now, and saying that they've improved the thermals of the charging process, basically saying in rare cases the truck would overheat. After that, I didn't really notice much benefit. For those of you who don't know, I've noticed a lot of charging issues with my Rivian when it comes to thermal performance. It'll say the battery pack's too hot and it will derate charging and I don't get a pretty good session out of it. And on a road trip after multiple sessions, it almost seemed like there was a hot spot somewhere in the battery pack. And well, what I did was I spoke to a bunch of Rivian engineers early on when I started to notice this, and they were saying, yeah, well, we're totally aware. Here's the charging logs. Some of the messaging was being shown incorrectly, they were saying, but my charging was still slowing down. And ultimately, I was left a little bit disappointed with the charging curve on my R1T. Even after that conversation, they came out with an update that said, hey, we've fixed the rare case of charger derating due to battery overheat. And to be honest, it was maybe a marginal benefit, but very, very little benefit after that. But recently, in a small software update, 2023.10.02, some of my friends have been saying they've noticed much better charging performance, and no mention of it in the charging or in the description notes here. So what we're going to do today is test that. So it's kind of a groggy day here, but take a look at this super awesome 7.3 here on the left. I love the OBS trucks. That thing, Wyoming truck, looks so good, sounds good, tastefully upgraded. I can see some Banks power stuff up there. Huge fan of Banks diesel tuning, but we're not talking about diesel trucks. We're talking about electric trucks. And this one gets software updates. And you can take a look here. If I come into the details, you can see it says charge port door issues, status indicators on the driver display to have weird performance stuff, and driver plus features. No mention of charging performance in this update. We'd have to go way back before even the updates on this truck from previous to see the improvements. Now, I've been driving the truck around all day preconditioned to a charging station. We're at 9% state of charge. We have about 14 miles to get over to the charging station, so we should arrive there super low. I wish the Rivian would show me percentage on arrival rather than miles, but that's okay. I mean, that's just a little bit annoying, but it would be great. But basically, we have the battery programmed in there. I don't think it's actually preconditioning right now because of it just being such a low state of charge, but it doesn't really matter. I could get this thing to overheat on the first charging session, even from a cold battery pack almost. What I really want to do is see if I can get a really solid curve out of this thing. So let's go run over to the EA station in Loveland, juice this thing up, and maybe on the way over I'll tell you a little bit of the testing procedures, and maybe it's more of a gut feeling check here because I didn't actually do any instrumented testing ahead of time. But yeah, I mean, based off of what everyone's telling me, and hopefully this test, we can come to a conclusion that Rivians will charge better. Maybe. Let's go find out. While we're on our way over to the charger, I would like to tell you a little bit, at least from my memory, some of the issues with Rivian charging performance since launch. If you guys remember, we were one of the first ones to test R1T, and we made a whole series on that truck, testing everything we could cram into 1 week. I remember not sleeping for 7 days straight because we were running it through test after test after test, and that truck went on a road trip to Arizona and back. It went through towing tests, off-road tests, and of course charging tests. And when we attempted to do our initial 0 to 100% charging test, I noticed that the truck would peak and then fall down, and then it would come up and peak again. And I've never really seen a charging curve like that unless it was a thermal limitation. So we had an inkling saying, okay, maybe something's going on here, and it wasn't perfect. Back then, the trucks wouldn't do 220 kilowatts. They would only pull 450 amps. I forget what the peak charging speed was, but less than that. So then just a few months after we had our test truck, maybe even a few weeks after we had our test truck, we were asking for Rivian to say, hey, unlock 500 amps. This battery pack can take it. And the reason 500 amps was a logical recommendation from our side, I think, was most CCS charging stations are capped at 500 amps. And so this truck's 500 amps at 400 volts is 200 kilowatts. However, the Rivian actually, when you get up on charge a little bit, goes above 400 volts. So I think top charge is right around 450 volts. So you can actually pull a little bit more. So the peak I've seen on this truck, I believe, was 222 or 221 kilowatts, somewhere around there. And that's 500 amps at pack voltage, and that's awesome. The problem was when they unlocked this charging curve, I also did some more testing. And I did testing with my friend Will's truck, who lives locally, and it was a nice launch green vehicle. And it took us like 12 or 15 times to map the ideal peak charging curve. And the reason is with 500 amps, we were now heating up the pack even more. And it was causing it to thermal derate even earlier. So we'd get a big peak, something would overheat, and then it would fall down. So then we would unplug, drive the truck to cool it off, plug it back in, and start all over. And it took us a lot of attempts to map the theoretical maximum charging curve. So that got massaged okay over time, and it seemed as we came into the winter time, winter of 2022, you know, coming now into 2023, it seemed that the charging performance, not just on my truck, but a lot of trucks, had been almost decreased. And it may have had something to do with colder temperatures on the outside, causing a larger gradient temperature in the pack. These were some of our theories. And what's nice is I had a chance to talk to some Rivian engineers about this problem. And what they were saying was, they're like, look, we totally agree. Something's going on here, and we are trying to work on software. And I have to give huge props to the Rivian team, their engineering team, their communications team, to get me in touch with the right people so that I can help sort this out with you guys. It's just amazing how this company operates from the outside looking in. I have so much access to ask questions and get the information for you. And, you know, there's the Tesla way of doing things, which is no PR team, and I think there's certainly a place for that. But then the Rivian team, just awesome people, and everyone I've met involved at Rivian has been really great. But that didn't, just because they were great people, didn't really solve the problems that I was seeing at charging stations. I'm like, hey, look, thanks for all the information. That was a great update. I appreciate it. My truck's still saying that it's overheating due to battery temperature. And maybe it happens a little bit later into the charging session, but it would seem like I would get a solid 15-minute run. And after 15 minutes to 20 minutes, it would just fall on its face every time, repeatedly. And on a road trip with multiple DC fast charging sessions, towing a trailer, and all of these things, it was actually really starting to slow me down. And so, yeah, I just figured, well, there's hardware limitations in the vehicle. There's not much they can do. And my understanding is that some of the temperature sensors in the battery pack were reaching their maximum temperature, which I believe is, they had it set around either 45 or 50 degrees Celsius, somewhere around there. By the way, we just did some Model Y testing and saw Tesla lets their cells get up to 64 degrees Celsius before massive derating. And it didn't even just fall off a face. They just let that thing get hot. So Rivian's definitely conservative here, no question. And I think that's fine for a new product, but it was sort of impacting the way I was using it. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna do a similar test where I plug into a charger pretty much dead, and we see how long it can hold peak for. I'm intentionally sort of using this day as a colder day outside, where I've warmed up the battery, I've preconditioned it all day. We're going to a charger that can deliver the maximum current the truck can ask for, and basically see what happens, see how long it can hold peak. And ideally, we see no message that says battery overheating, or maybe we'll see it later in the session. But I will say, on the previous software versions, I've DC fast charged this truck a lot. I would see derating maybe after 15 minutes easily on the first charging session from a cold battery pack. I've plugged this thing in so stone cold, and it warms up so fast. I'm like, whoa, we got some problems here. So let's go see what happens in this charging session. I'm expecting good things based off of what I'm hearing, and have to give a big shout out to my friend Josh Wardell. He's created sort of a CAN server for Rivian so we can get the data. I got to reach out to him so I can actually get one of those so I can see all the cool readings in the truck. But let's go rock and roll, head over there, and see how this charging session does. Well, pulling into the parking lot here, make sure no one's coming. I can hear the axles are back to clicking, sadly. So a little clunk, 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 clunks. And I keep losing center caps on the Rivian for some reason. Nice XC40 recharge right here. That one is unavailable. I believe it's been marked as unavailable due to our Rate Your Charge updates because of a failure with the cable cooling system. So Rate Your Charge making a difference right there. Unfortunately, they brought the whole charger offline when technically it gives a 10-minute boost and then just derates to 30 or 40 kilowatts for the rest. But let's activate charger number 3. We have a fully warmed up car. I haven't even driven this in so long. I don't even know how to work the Rivian. We're at 3% state of charge. We'll charge it up to 85%, and let's see how well this thing does. We'll monitor the charge throughout and see if they've made any improvements. All right, here we go. Charge port door open. There we go. Please plug in. I've been waiting for this all week to take the Rivian out. I just had to get through testing the other ones. You can see I keep losing center caps here and my axles are back to clicking. So I think it just needs a full retighten. I believe they have a more of a permanent fix there, but yeah, not sure exactly what's going on there. I really want to do a 10% challenge in this truck, and I might do it as a winter situation. You can see I have studded winter tires on it, which is perfect for these conditions. We're right on borderline freezing and it's wet and it's all gonna freeze tonight. So I'm glad we run studded tires for these types of conditions. Okay, interesting. That Volvo's ripping along okay, but let's see how we're doing. We are up to 30 kilowatts. That's a start. 40, 50, 60, come on. Let's see how this thing does. I imagine it's going to be pretty good to start out. Should just go up to about 180 kilowatts at this state of charge. If I remember correctly, 500 amps. It's walking its way up. Be just slightly cold right now because it didn't precondition on the way over here. Anyway, I'll keep an eye on it and let you know my thoughts. These chargers are usually good about pumping all the juice. We seem to have, even though it says it's balanced chargers, I believe we have 3 dedicated 350 kilowatt cabinets in there for these. Yep, and I believe this is more cold temperature limited, so let's see how this goes. And here we go. At about 11%, it actually ramped up to full speed. So I think we were just on the cold end, temperature related to the battery. Now it's ripping maxed out, so we should get a pretty fat charging session ripping at top speed. So very much looking to see if it can handle this. The previous software, no question, couldn't even handle 1 deep charge without overheating. So this will be really interesting to see if we get that message or if we get that message later on. Hell yeah, we got these trucks revving while we're charging up. That's awesome. I love it. People are, yeah, I've noticed a few more people hating on EVs recently. But I'm a fan of Vortec V8s at the limiter, baby. They don't know that I love it. Well, we're now 15 minutes in, no sign of overheating, and it's still ripping along great. I was just talking to these guys at the trucks. They thought it was funny. They were actually pretty interested in the Rivian once I started talking to them. They're like, oh, it's actually quick. And I was like, yeah, but, you know, towing, there's still some issues. I think you got to be reasonable with them. And they were definitely interested. I was telling them all about it. So, yeah, we're still ripping along pretty good here. Looking forward to seeing how the rest of the charging goes. And I can see here at 38%, we just came off of peak charging speeds. We've put in 54 kilowatt hours in 17 minutes. That's pretty good. The thing has a huge battery pack, man. I haven't charged this truck in a while. It's amazing. We're only at 38% and we've put in 54 kilowatt hours. Here comes an Ioniq 5 backing into the charger that's not available, unfortunately. But the Volvo just unplugged, so he can go and get fast speeds over there. Anyway, we're definitely coming down to 150 kilowatts. This dude's just revving with this guy right there. It's a little bit rude, I would say. But, yeah, okay. Well, the kids, I guess, what are you going to do? Now they're just doing burnout, or at least trying to, right into a Mini Cooper. I don't know. But, yeah, this dude just backed into a non-working charger, and we're still ripping along here, 150 kilowatts at 40%. I feel like it may have done more than that before, but no warnings yet. At least before it would have shown a warning. We'll keep an eye on it and see what happens. If it dips any lower, then we know maybe not much has been improved. That's kind of what it's looking like right now. All right, well, I'll update you here in a few minutes. Craziest thing I've ever seen. This guy's trying to plug in his car, even though it says the charger's unavailable. And the other crazy thing is we're definitely derating here. 112 kilowatts at 42%. I don't know, maybe I should drive it down, and I really don't know. It's not saying it's limiting for any particular reason. Right now, we're the only car plugged in, so it's not Station. Station's giving us everything. And we are now at 50% state of charge, still just doing 100 kilowatts. So I've never seen this behavior for ever. So something has definitely changed. My guess is we hit a temperature limit and then it just dynamically pulled down the power and held it there. It just walked its way down here. It didn't hit the big dips and then come back up, and it wasn't all over the place and jerky. This seemed very smooth, very deliberate, and the truck is definitely derating here a little bit down to 100 kilowatts. It doesn't seem to be dropping at all. So I think what I'm going to do is actually drive it down to probably 20% state of charge. So let's stop charging. I'm going to drive it down to 20%, precondition it again, just to make sure it wasn't a weird temperature thing. And let's try it again, and let's see if it also does this derate to 100 kilowatts. It happened around 38 to 40% state of charge and then just sat there to 50. Let's see if that continues to happen on the next charging session and see if they improved anything. So time to do some driving, I guess. All right, just to make sure we didn't have a fluke or anything weird happened, I am now driving with the car preconditioning back to the charger again. We are at 50% state of charge. We're gonna drive it down to 20% and plug it in. That will really simulate, I think, a solid road trip. And notice if we were either too cold in that session. I just wish Rivian would tell us battery min and max temp here. It would really help us figure this stuff out. But ultimately, that first charging session, I would say, was different. I don't know if it's any better, but it was different. Let's see what happens on the second one. We could have been a little bit too cold. We could have been a little bit too hot. I have no way of knowing because I don't have a temperature gauge. Well, we are now pulling back into the charging station. We're currently at 21% state of charge, and I just drove the truck fairly normally for the last little bit. I had it preconditioned over to the charging station the whole time. It actually just kicked off preconditioning maybe a few minutes ago. I think it got to where it wanted to go. As soon as I unplugged, the AC compressor was absolutely ripping, and it ran for minutes. So I actually think we may have been on the warm side. It looks like there's two vehicles there charging right now, so we need to wait for one of them to leave because those are our only two opportunities to charge. But I think that's okay. The battery pack should totally be where it is needed to be. It looks like the ID4 owner is actually just unplugging, and maybe the Ioniq 5 owner as well. So that could be really good for us timing wise. We'll just wait over here for them to go. Yep, looks like they're both leaving. One's from Rhode Island and one's from here. And yep, then we'll plug this thing in here in just a moment. Should be pretty interesting to see how this goes. And there goes the ID4. Wow, they did a deep charge. They pulled in at like, what does that look like? 1% out of spec style. I don't know if you guys can see that. Yeah, that's like a 1% to 90. That is a deep charging session. Wow. Please plug in. All right, and in we go. Very nice. Second try. I love these little experiments. Nothing too scientific, no real benchmark here, but interesting to see nonetheless. Let's see what it ramps up to when we first get started here. So we went from 50% down to 20, again, cruising at 80 miles an hour, 85 miles an hour, something like that, just totally normal driving. It's chilly outside, so it had a chance to cool down the battery pack. The AC compressor ran for a bit, and I heard it doing some weird thermal stuff just as I was getting close to the charger. And now we are charging. So let's keep an eye on this here. 40 kilowatts, 45, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100, 120, 30, 40. Now we're talking. Come on, baby. 170, 180. Good stuff. Right up to max. So it turns out I actually know the Ioniq 5 owner next to me, and she's a viewer, and she just got her preconditioning update, so she was just trying it out. She was like, it didn't make much of a difference. And I'm like, how close are you? She's like, I'm 8 minutes away. I'm like, precondition longer. So another Ioniq 5 just rolled up. Man, Ioniq 5s are clogging up these stations. Love to see it. We have not enough stations here in Colorado. We need like 12 of these or 16 of these. We only have 4 DC fast chargers, 350 kilowatt chargers in all of northern Colorado. Pretty insane. But I gotta say, we're still rocking along at 213 kilowatts at 26% as expected. Truck seemed to precondition, get where it wanted to be. Let's hope for a good charging session. And we just had some weird thermals on the first one. My fingers are crossed. We are now passing 38% and we are rocking along 218 kilowatts or so. That's what we like to see. 219. Come on, baby, let's go. So definitely thinking the truck just needed more time to prepare here. So let's see how long it can hold this for. I'm hoping we get much better than the first session. What the heck? Down to 97 kilowatts, 98 kilowatts. Now the weird thing is it's not giving us a message as to why. You know, this seems very reminiscent to the old profile where it would say, you know, battery too hot or charging station limited or something. This time we're only 12 minutes into our session. I just checked the cable. It's cool. It's not bad at all. And I can't for the life of me figure out why it would be doing this other than just getting too hot. So let's see if we hear the compressor kick on. I'm going to let this thing charge up now for sure. And we'll see if we hear cooling kick on in a little bit. Sometimes it has a delayed cooling. That was one of the issues before as well. So it just sat at 100 kilowatts for the last, I don't know, 5% or so. And I can hear just a whiff of the AC compressor kicking on now. Again, seemingly delayed, but power's starting to come up. So I'm noticing differences here, but still a little bit of a delayed start of cooling. Huh. It's starting to pick up as the AC compressor is ramping. You guys hear that spinning up in the background now? Slowly. It could just be pulling the extra power to run the AC compressor, to be honest. I don't know if this is showing what's going into the battery pack or into the port. Fairly certain this is into the port because it's matching up almost perfectly with the charging station. So this could just be compensating for running the AC compressor. It's really starting to pick up now. 110 kilowatts. 111. Definitely seems like it should have kicked on cable or kicked on battery cooling earlier, which we've noticed the same problem on earlier software. Could be getting in a hot in a place that they don't think they can cool. But Rivian told me that wasn't much of an issue when I spoke to their engineers. They said, nah, it's more like software optimization. The hardware is actually pretty good. But I don't know. This leads me to believe maybe not so much. Why'd we have that weird dip? So odd. Again, happened at 13 minutes on this charging session. And we're still not recovered, not even close to recovered to where this thing should be. And 100 kilowatts is really slow on a battery this big. That's like nothing. That's trickle charging this thing. AC compressor's now spinning up real hard. I'll keep an eye as to when it really ramps up significantly. Just to give you guys an impression, fans are running, AC compressor screaming, and we are only at 127 kilowatts now, 128. So seemingly it's cooling down whatever it needed to, and charging is increasing. Very interesting. So let's summarize some of our findings because it's been really interesting so far. I have to say, I spoke to some of my friends who are in the know, who have Rivian vehicles. I won't reveal who you are, maybe. However, in speaking with them and speaking with other people who've been following this, it sounds like this software version that I have, people are noticing the battery cooling kicking on earlier, way earlier, before D-rate. And I have to say, that's just not what I've experienced in my truck twice in a row. Twice in a row, we had big speeds that came off a ledge, and rather than falling to sometimes even 5 kilowatts we've seen as bad as, where it just basically shuts charging off. They've definitely been working on this curve. They've been working on the heat management where they seem to pull you down to 100 kilowatts and then it takes another 5 minutes or so for the cooling request to the AC compressor to kick on. Then that rips full send. You see charging come up, and once charging starts to come up, I assume we're off the maximum temperature limit at that point. Then it seems to obviously spin down the AC compressor. And then it happens again, and then it spun up my compressor again. It didn't go back to max. So in terms of my experience, what have I noticed between the old version and this one? Definitely changes. It no longer falls off a ledge, cuts off charging, and does all that stuff. And now just derates to 100 kilowatts and then comes back up. Not the end of the world, but not ideal for something that, again, I use for long trips, towing and hauling and going across the country. You know, I'm really jealous of how that Hummer EV charges when I had it on test. But another thing I noticed was the truck never once said, where it would say constantly on older software versions, slower due to battery cooling. or slower due to battery heating or charging station limited. In this case, I know it wasn't charging station limited. I know this charger really well. This thing pumps the juice when it's working, and it was working great. So, and I know that's rare for me to say about EA, but the charger wasn't the issue here. At least that's as far as I can tell. It's all the truck. And thought it was weird that I didn't get that messaging saying, hey, it was waiting for the battery to cool. Now, conversely, again, friends of mine with this same software are noticing different behavior on their trucks. So is it a specific problem with my truck? Is it because I have a lot more miles and a lot more DC charging? And again, I got almost 30,000 miles on this thing, and most of it's probably DC fast charging. So I wonder if my truck is aging. I don't know. These are just questions. At the end of the day, I'll be keeping you updated on this situation. Although it sounds like for most trucks, many people are not going to be, or I should say, should be better off than even this test. This is nothing scientific. This is just me going to the charger, playing around with new software. Rivian, I really wish you would give us more temperature data in the truck. You used to have the Ride app, then you changed the password on us. We can't hack the new password. Thankfully, we'll have the CAN server, so we'll have all the raw data on the truck coming soon. I can't wait to get that installed in mine and share that with our audience. Automakers really should be a bit more transparent about what's going on inside the vehicle from a technical level for us nerds. You'd be surprised at how many people can learn about electric cars just by giving them access to the data. Honestly, if Mercedes can give you temperature data on the motors and the battery pack, that's really all we need, then Rivian should be able to do that too. The Germans are over conservative, and even they're doing it. So anyway, definite improvement, still not perfect on my truck. Sounds like it's much better on other trucks. We'll see what time comes. Maybe I'll try charging on a brand new Rivian to see if it has something to do with aging or my particular vehicle. But there you go. Thanks so much for watching. See you in another one soon. Bye-bye.